We're advancing into a future that's taking new shape every day. What will our world look like in 50 years? Fully automated cities and flying cars? Will our children have artificial organs? Will they live to be 100? Top international scientists look half a century ahead. Their discoveries will change the world. Fasten your seatbelts. This is the adventure of the future.
People sometimes ask me, Professor, what is the #1 challenge facing us in the next 50 years? And I say, hands down, it is energy. Energy to fuel our cars, cities, and industries. Energy to empower an exploding population, all without collapsing the environment. Well, that's a pretty tall order. However, I believe that the technological challenges may be many, but so are the possible solutions.
50 years from now, the Earth's population is 9 billion. Every day, the world economy consumes 30 billion liters of oil. Scientists are trying everything to find new sources of energy in the atom, at the bottom of the sea, even in space. One of the most ambitious research projects is anchored in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's the base for a remarkable link to a space station 400 kilometers above the Earth. It looks like a gigantic merry-go-round, but it was once the great hope of China and the USA, a testbed of extremes to create the solar cells of the future. The experiments on Solaris were to have revolutionized the world's energy supplies, but the space energy project hasn't made the progress everyone hoped for. For 5 long years, astronaut and physicist Bob Sanders has worked with his colleague Wang Liqiao in search of an effective solar energy material. The Chinese-American team remain committed to their mission, but they know that unless they can come up with something sensational in the next 3 weeks, the space station will be closed down.
Shave.
Morning, Bob.
Morning, Liqiao. Any good news?
Not yet.
Coffee? Perk you up?
No thanks. I've almost finished prepping another panel. Should be ready to go in a couple of minutes.
Sounds good. I'll be there in a minute.
Up next, worst sandstorm on record. Blast through Egypt.
You give me coffee with no coffee?
I'm sorry, we've run out.
Well, then order some more.
I'm sorry, no more food orders. We have enough supplies until station shutdown.
Great.
Glad to be of service.
Liqiao has just started today's run of tests. It begins with a chemical reaction between 2 fluids. Liqiao is sure that he only needs to find the correct proportions of the mix. The tests take place in the sunlight on the space station's solar ring. Robots move the samples into position. Any one of these panels could be the breakthrough into an age of unlimited energy. And there's nothing the world needs more urgently 50 years from now.
Harnessing solar energy is still considered too expensive, too inefficient to be a serious source of power. So why are scientists and oil companies spending millions of dollars investing in solar technology? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because sunlight is clean, it's safe, and oh yeah, it's also limitless. Now, get your head around this fact. Every second of every day, the sun produces billions of times more energy than is consumed by the entire planet. The trick is catching it.
The world's leading laboratory for solar cell testing is in Germany. It's known for its tough tests. Here, silicon panels are being put through their paces. The first challenge comes from 2-centimeter thick hailstones. They crash down onto the panels at 80 kilometers an hour. If the panels survive without a scratch, it's time for the next assault. A 45-kilo lead weight in free fall. Modern solar cells are ultra-hard, super thin, and shock resistant. The best are now deployed in every part of the world in all weathers. There's only one thing about them that is still a big disappointment. Tests in the Sun simulator reveal how inefficient even the best solar cells are. The tests show how much of the light is transformed into electricity. The lamps are giving off enough energy every hour to power a desktop computer for 3 weeks. But how much of it is actually captured? The tests show that the solar cell could power the PC for just 5 days. That means just 18% of the energy has been transformed into electric current. The disappointing result is due to the characteristics of silicon. A silicon cell can only process light from a small part of the sun's spectrum, close to the infrared area. No more than 30%. So 70% of the sun's energy is lost. But within 50 years, a completely new material could revolutionize solar energy technology. At the University of Utrecht, physicists are experimenting with a method that could be the foundation for Bob and Li Chow's experiments in space. Professor Daniel van Mekelberg and his team are using a series of vacuums cut off from air and humidity to grow what they call quantum points, tiny crystals invisible to the naked eye. They pour a fluid with semiconductor molecules into a hot solution. When the mixture changes color, they know they've created the quantum points. They make the quantum points in different sizes. To see why, you have to look at them in ultraviolet light. Depending on their size, the crystals absorb different light frequencies. This discovery has opened up a whole new area in solar power research. If it were possible to unite all these crystals in one material, it would be the perfect solar cell. This supermodule made of quantum points would be able to absorb the whole spectrum of sunlight. It could transform up to 86% of the sun's energy into electric power. It would change the world, transforming the sun's energy into power for cars and houses, factories and entire cities. But the quantum points don't behave in quite the way Daniel van Mekelberg expected.
When we put a drop of the quantum point solution on a base, we usually get an irregular structure like this one. But for a good solar cell, we need an absolutely regular structure with as few holes or other flaws as possible. That's the only way that strong connections between the individual crystals can be built up and for the energy to flow in the best way possible. Then we could build the best possible solar cell.
An electron microscope will show whether they're making any progress toward their goal. The crystal samples are first brought into a completely dust-free vacuum. A tiny probe is now scanning the sample, atom by atom. The computer is building an image magnified 100 million times. In this test, the structure has been successfully achieved, and the experts believe that one day the last flaws will be eliminated.
The dream is simply to no longer be dependent on fossil fuels. If we could really succeed in harvesting the energy of the sun and using it efficiently, we would have solved many of our energy problems.
A breakthrough in solar energy would mean the end of the age of oil. But great inventions and discoveries often need decades to come to fruition, and their inventors need patience.
With time and patience, the mulberry leaf becomes a silk gown.
Confucius?
Try again.
Chairman Mao?
Chinese proverb.
That was my next guess. I'm sorry. I'm patient, but we're running out of time on this. I know we can get to 80%.
So do I.
Let me take over.
I'll clean the transmitter. Oh, Paula should be here soon to check the photovoltaic generator.
What about the new batch of test fluids we ordered?
She's bringing them up.
Finally, some good news.
The fluids or Paula?
Paula Keller is an engineer at the European Space Agency. She's one of the Solaris ground crew. Every month, she flies to a platform built on a rock in mid-ocean. From here, she sets out into space to supply the scientists with test materials. The team on the space station are now working round the clock because of the imminent closure of their lab. Li Chao is cleaning the quantum transmitter after yet another series of tests.
I'll get started with the next experiment.
For the final series of the day, Bob selects the chemical ingredients the transmitter will turn into billions of tiny solar crystals. But this time, he misses a tiny detail.
Hello, Paula. How are you today?
Fine. How about a little bit more air conditioning?
Sorry, we're conserving energy.
Great. What's our travel time?
2 hours, 23 minutes. Get ready for takeoff.
Ready when you are.
3, 2, 1, takeoff.
Paula's way of reaching space has nothing to do with today's rockets. She leaves Earth in an elevator.
In the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk, a young boy climbs a beanstalk into the sky and reaches the clouds. Now, the 21st century version of this is called the space elevator. And oh yeah, it is physically possible. Now, amazing developments in nanotechnology may mean that in 50 years, a Sunday picnic in outer space may not be a fantasy.
The concept for the space elevator was developed in New Mexico. Bradley Edwards was a physicist at Los Alamos National Labs, America's most famous research institute, when he came across a newspaper article.
I started on the space elevator about 7-8 years ago when I saw a statement saying it couldn't be done. And for a physicist working on advanced concepts, that's red flag to a bull kind of thing.
At the time, Bradley was working on Earth observation satellites. The cost of sterile laboratories and in-space construction was enormous. But the most expensive and most dangerous part of the mission was always the blastoff. Impressive the liftoff may be, but it costs $20,000 for every kilo put in space, with a great deal of risk.
Rockets right now are exciting because there's danger, there's flame, we don't want that. We want it to be boring. So you get on, you're not thinking about whether you're going to die. You're thinking about, I'm going to go to space. I'm going to get there. When I get there, I'm going to do this. That's what we want.
The basic idea is that of a simple elevator. A cable stretches 100,000 kilometers from the Earth into space. It's kept straight by a weight at the bottom and by centrifugal force. A capsule travels up and down along the cable. Slowly, over time, Edwards' sketches became concrete proposals. The elevator could travel in each direction once a day. It would cost $20,000 per person instead of $20 million. Step by step, Edwards broke down the colossal plan into small, soluble problems. He calculated the radiation in space, the danger of collisions with space garbage, and the size of the Earth base station. As bad weather could threaten the elevator cable, he analyzed 10 years of weather records in order to pinpoint the best location for the Earth base. After painstaking comparisons, he found it. Close to the equator, a few hundred nautical miles off Mexico's Pacific coast, is the area with the most stable weather conditions in the world. One of the many unanswered questions involved the elevator capsule's power plant. How would it be supplied with energy at great distances from the Earth? Edwards worked with engineers to build a 1/10 scale model that set out the basic idea of the electricity supply system. A laser beam would supply energy to a solar cell on the elevator. But that's not the toughest problem.
We have lots of challenges. The most challenging is the ribbon. We need to make the high-strength materials. We need to make those into a ribbon. Right now, steel's not strong enough. Kevlar's not strong enough. No material that we have is strong enough other than the carbon nanotubes.
One of the people working on this very special material is a colleague of Bradley Edwards. Yunqian Zhu is a materials researcher at Los Alamos. He has one thing in common with Edwards. He loves challenges that other people think are impossible. He would build the ribbon not out of steel, but out of billions of individual carbon atoms. In a series of complex steps, he constructs narrow pipes 50 times stronger than steel, carbon nanotubes. With the naked eye, they are completely invisible. They can only be seen with a high-powered electron microscope. They said it was impossible, but Yunqian did it in just 2 years. Not only were the carbon fibers indubitably there, they were longer than anyone could have dreamt possible. The team printed out 230 pictures from the microscope to demonstrate the length of their nanotubes. They'd reached exactly 4 centimeters. 13 times longer than anything achieved before. Enough to think of moving on to the next stage. The challenge is to spin these long fibers into longer and thicker threads. According to Yunqian's calculations, this material would then be strong enough for a cable into space. The vision of a space elevator has moved one step closer to reality.
Having it take us 50 years to get there, you need some sort of big surprises showing up to delay it that long. So I think 50 years we'll definitely have people going up, and it probably won't be just Bob and Li Chao. It'll be tourists. It'll be more general public, in addition to workers, people going up for business, scientists going up for studies. It's a very realistic scenario.
Meanwhile, there is an unexpected incident on Solaris.
What happened?
I'm not sure. It seems to be acting up again.
The sensors are measuring a breathtakingly high degree of efficiency, but only for a fraction of a second.
The computer is fine. I just checked it yesterday.
Then why did it spike?
I'll scan the drives again. I'll be right back. Hi, darling. How are you?
It's so hot. But I'm fine. I can feel the baby kicking all the time now. And look.
She's getting so big.
We're gonna have to start thinking of names soon.
I know. I've been thinking about that. Tian, I'm sorry. I need to call you back.
Hello, Dr. Wang.
Secretary Luo. What can I do for you, sir?
Our base station informs me you get pretty impressive results.
Actually, sir, it's a false alarm. We're checking the equipment.
Dr. Wang, when you do get a breakthrough, I want the data first.
But that would be a breach of space law. And besides, Dr. Sanders...
Dr. Wang, you're an officer of the Chinese Army, and you will do as you're ordered.
At this precise moment, the space elevator is racing towards the space station at a speed of 350 kilometers an hour, away from a world in which the energy crisis has taken a dramatic turn.
Be liable for the mistakes politicians have made over the decades. Due to the worldwide energy crisis, the United States and China have entered a third round of emergency talks on Central Asian gas and oil supplies. The European Union will mediate. Experts speculate the U.S. may be forced to tap into its strategic reserves.
After the last oil crisis, Germany, like many other European nations, needed an energy insurance policy, a strategic oil reserve of hundreds of millions of barrels of oil, enough to run the entire country for 90 days. Great. But what happens in the future when the world's entire supply of usable oil completely runs out? What then? Well, today, some researchers are trying to harness the power of the sun. Other researchers are even bolder. They want to create a sun.
Of course, nobody actually wants to build an entire star. But physicists have managed to copy the sun's operating principle. At 15 million degrees centigrade, the sun melts hydrogen into helium. In this atomic fusion, a gram of hydrogen releases the same amount of energy as 8 tons of oil. But the fire of the sun does not burn well on Earth.
The problem of recreating a sun-like fusion on Earth is similar to that of making wet matches burn. It's very difficult. But in the last few decades, we've made a great deal of progress.
To trigger the reaction, the hydrogen in this chamber is heated to 100 million degrees. Before the experiment can begin, a powerful magnetic field is activated as a heat shield to protect the huge plant. Finally, a 2-meter-thick steel and concrete door seals the chamber. This protects the scientists in the control room. The process now being set in motion could in the future solve all our energy problems. Once the technology has matured, it should be possible to supply the energy needs of a family for a year with 3 bottles of water and a handful of minerals. According to today's plans, the first fusion reactor should be supplying electricity in 50 years' time, if fusion really works. At the Marham Institute in Bremen, Germany, a substance is being investigated that might come to the rescue sooner. In this depot, they're storing samples of an energy-rich substance that was only discovered by accident on a Siberian expedition a few decades ago. Methane hydrate, a form of ice that burns. Today, scientists know that it's present in colossal amounts in the depths of the oceans. A remote-controlled submarine is deployed to find out more about this potential new treasure trove. 1,000 meters below the surface, it starts work with its cameras and instruments. The best place to look is where marine life is at its richest, because wherever there's organic life, methane is created. And in the pressure of the ocean depths, the gas is combined with water into methane ice. The experts have been waiting a long time for these pictures. In the research vessel, an engineer is steering the robot, which will raise the methane ice. The team expect to encounter difficulties on the long way up to the ship. Every 100 meters, the water pressure and temperature change. At any moment, the ice could disintegrate. But this ice has an almost magic effect on the imaginations of energy researchers and economists. Estimated reserves could easily make up for expected shortages in oil supplies.
We believe that there are maybe up to 10,000 gigatons of carbon in methane hydrate reserves. Given our estimated availability of coal, oil and gas, a total of 5,000 gigatons, our primal energy resources would simply double.
On the last mission, the scientists finally succeeded in raising an airtight sample of methane hydrate. It should help them calculate the reserves much more accurately. Centimeter by centimeter, the ice core is scanned by computer tomography. Each layer confirms their expectations. The sea floor contains huge amounts of methane hydrate, but using it might be extremely dangerous.
The one problem with methane hydrate as an energy source is that we will be producing CO2, And since the CO2 problem is already an acute one, we have to find alternative energy sources. But in 50 years, we'll probably have no other choice and just have to use methane hydrate as an energy source.
The space elevator starts its docking maneuver with the space station. The elevator is guided into its place on the Space Lab via the ultra-strong space ribbon. Paula uses an airlock to move from the parking deck into the space station.
Hello, Paula.
Hi, Bob. How goes it?
You know, still plugging away.
Maybe this'll help.
My coffee. Thank you, you're the best. Hey, besides the photovoltaic generator, we just found out we're having problems with the steering element on the laser beam.
Yeah, sorry, but I have to stick to my work order. No extras because of the shutdown.
Well, you think maybe you can do it off the record?
Back on Earth, one of the world's economic superpowers is steering straight towards a global energy crisis.
Hospitals in Beijing and Shanghai are running on emergency power. Every gas station in the country has lines a kilometer long. And today we issued a ban on the use of air conditioners.
What's the status on additional fuel?
The Russians have reneged on our agreement and quadrupled the gas prices. The Americans have negotiated a secret deal with Kazakhstan to increase their oil supplies by over 50%, which cuts our supplies in half.
What do you suggest, Admiral?
Take what's rightfully ours. Occupy the Central Asian oil fields.
Not yet. That'll mean all-out war. I suggest more indirect action.
Such as?
Let our friends in Central Asia deal with the situation.
You don't need a crystal ball to see that the superpowers of the future will be the United States and China. And there's an excellent chance that they'll be on friendly terms with one another. But consider this fact. The Chinese economy is growing exponentially, and so is its demand for energy. One estimate is that China will need to build 4 middle-level power plants per week for the next 50 years just to keep up with energy demands. So it's not too difficult to see that in the future, these superpowers will be competing fiercely for markets, natural resources, and most importantly, oil.
That's the biggest increase in global temperature measurements in history. In northern Africa and southern Europe, record high temperatures.
As Paula does a full technical check on Solaris one last time before its closure, disturbing news reaches the space station from Earth.
European Union to come up with a quick solution. Last night, heavily armed masked bands took control of gas and oil pipelines in the troubled regions west of China, which for years have been plagued by guerrilla warfare. The U.S. government has strongly condemned their actions. We'll be back with more details after a short break.
You're right. The computer's not broken. But what caused that 83% spike?
No idea. My data got corrupted when the structure fell apart.
Let's rerun that last test. See what happens.
Just as Bob and Li Chao at last see a glimmer of hope in their experiments, in the USA, oil prices are going through the roof. The president calls a crisis meeting.
As you know, several strategic gas and oil pipelines in Kazakhstan were seized last night. That means that delivery of our new supplies is now blocked.
Mr. President, my team at National Security is putting together a full report. In the meantime, Dr. Fleming has an update on our energy status.
Current supplies are good for 8 to 10 weeks, after which we'll have to tap into the strategic reserves. Either way, further electricity rationing seems inevitable, as do car-free weekends.
Not exactly a catchy re-election slogan.
Sir, do we know who's behind the raids on the pipelines?
The CIA is still investigating.
Sir, the military's operating under the assumption China staged the whole thing.
That's entirely plausible, but we must proceed with caution until we've established all the facts. No overt military action.
Yes, sir. May I suggest we send the surveillance and acquisition platoon from our Japanese base?
Authorized to proceed.
Okay, I'll see you guys.
Wait, let me give you a hand. Photo generator running okay?
Good as new.
Laser?
What can I say? I'm a hero.
I hope I didn't waste your time. With the shutdown and everything.
You can't quit on me now. The mechanics are taking bets on you guys.
What?
Yeah.
What kind of odds they have on us?
Hi. But I like long shots.
Meanwhile, Li Chao continues his search for the cause of the unexpectedly high efficiency levels. And then he suddenly makes a discovery that recalls some of the other great moments in science. The discovery of dynamite, of penicillin, and the heart pacemaker all had one thing in common: the role of chance.
I think I know what happened.
What?
The neutralizer interacted with the test fluids and created a new molecular structure.
You think that's what happened?
Let's add one drop at a time.
You got it.
If they can reconstruct the formula, this will be the beginning of a new age. Energy on demand, an engineer's dream. It could save the global climate. No more energy wars. The way to a better world.
I think we did it.
Wait. Why didn't it fall apart this time?
Good question.
We needed some molecular properties and quantum efficiency.
I'll run it through the analyzer. We should have the data in a few hours.
That was fast.
Big Brother's watching.
Well, you go talk to them. I'm sure I'm gonna get a phone call myself.
Hello, Li Chao.
So glad it's you. Where are you?
In a hotel room.
What's going on?
It's a very nice hotel, Dr. Wang. Don't worry. Your wife is fine. A situation that could change very, very quickly.
You'll get the data first.
That will no longer be sufficient. The Americans cannot have it at all.
But Dr. Sanders is working on it now.
Then you have to figure out a way to destroy it. Once you have got the results.
How do I do that?
You have exactly 4 hours.
For Li Chao, it's an almost hopeless battle against the clock.
Mr. President, we have some exciting news. The Solaris team has discovered a substance which has the capacity to transform more than 80% of sunlight into electricity.
Congratulations. Well done.
Mr. President, there is a problem, though, sir. We are now positive that Beijing was behind the attacks on our Central Asian oil supplies. Well, China cannot be trusted.
What do you suggest?
Well,
We
Mr.
keep the
President,
discovery to ourselves.
How?
We make the Chinese scientist a very generous offer.
Beijing will go ballistic if they find out.
Let's hope not, sir.
The bottom line is we need those pipelines back.
Mr. President, I request permission to put all our forces in Central Asia on standby. I'd also like to authorize additional reconnaissance flights and deploy special forces near the pipelines.
Permission granted.
I'm a scientist, but I was once a soldier in the United States Infantry. And the Army drills into us one fundamental fact. It takes humans, not machines, to take and hold territory. This means that we will have robots and drones on the battlefield, but they'll be useless without their human controllers. Our soldiers are indispensable, and we will give them all the latest high-tech wizardry, including the possibility of becoming invisible.
In the future, a soldier's most important piece of equipment will be his uniform. For the first time in history, weapons are no longer at the forefront of military research. The priority is protecting the fighter. The US Army is investing $50 million to develop a completely new kind of fabric. It'll be worn like a second skin, it'll camouflage and protect the soldier, and if necessary, it will save his life.
The leap ahead would be the nanotechnology, where we would hope that we would have one textile that could act as body armor all the time and weigh a fraction of what traditional body armor would weigh.
1/50th the thickness of human hair, the basic material the scientists will use to weave this bulletproof fabric. The science may be complex, but the idea is very simple. Microscopic particles of iron react instantly to a magnetic field. Thus, a fabric that contains them can change its characteristics in seconds.
So this special liquid, which is a magnetorheological liquid, in the absence of a magnetic field, has something in the consistency like a runny yogurt. But in the application of a magnetic field, it becomes the consistency of something like peanut butter. It has a yield stress. It's very difficult to push through. This lends itself quite well to perhaps making a dynamic body armor for soldiers, something which is soft and pliable and adheres to the contours of the soldier's shape when not in use. But in the incidence of a blunt object or a bullet, could become stiff as a board.
Thus, the firing of a bullet could lead to the creation of a magnetic field that would completely rearrange the molecules in the fabric, making it impenetrable. As if by magic, a soft material turns into armor plating. And the next step sounds even crazier. If the bullet does after all injure the soldier, then tiny artificial muscles in the uniform's fibers would go into action. Highly magnified, these fibers resemble small hinges. Their two wings are movable. Working together, they would apply emergency aid in the event of cardiac arrest and revive the soldier. And at the same time, the uniform would raise the alarm.
One of our greatest challenges is command and control of our soldiers inside the battle space. So we're building that next generation system, the future combat system, that will not only allow me to see where my soldiers are, but also share information with them, leveraging data from other soldiers or unmanned ground or air vehicles to provide reconnaissance and information to the soldier as fast as possible.
A satellite network would pick up the soldier's call for help and pass it on to the command center. The mission commander would immediately see the positions of all friendly and enemy soldiers on his screen. Camera drones would keep in contact with the medical teams to update them on the casualties' situation. Rescue missions like this could be routine within 20 years. But in 50 years, they may even be unnecessary, for the military and researchers are working to make soldiers completely invisible. One possible method is based on a very simple idea. Imagine that cameras were integrated into the uniform and the uniform itself were a display. The cameras could always project an exact image of the soldier's surroundings onto his body, and at the touch of a button, he could melt into his environment. As with a lot of military technology, this idea first came out of a storyteller's imagination.
The goal is to eventually get to what science fiction has told us from years past, is that the uniform becomes a mirror and you literally disappear inside the battle space. That would be something we'd hope to see in the 2050 timeframe.
In the Pentagon, the US Army Command are watching the progress of their invisible army. They've reached the pipelines, unseen by the enemy. Meanwhile, up in the space station, the consequences of the political unrest are making themselves felt.
Listen, Chow, we need to talk. First off, I checked with home base. Promised to send them the data ASAP.
What? Why did you do that?
That's standard procedure.
You should have spoken to me first!
Hey, Chow. What'd they say to you?
They abducted my wife.
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
My government is demanding the formula for themselves. Bob, you have to help me. I have less than 4 hours to send Beijing the formula and destroy the data.
I got it. We have to turn the tables on them. Attack them where they're unprepared and appear where you're not expected.
Sun Tzu, the art of war.
Required freshman reading.
So where do we appear unexpected?
Right there. We send a message out to the public so China can't touch Tian.
There's no way. All our communication lines are monitored.
Wait, I have an idea. You ever heard of a message in a bottle?
Paula Keller?
Dr. Keller, this is Hudson at the landing platform. Dr. Sanders just sent down a piece of the photo generator for repair. He said he needs it back immediately.
What are you talking about? I just fixed that yesterday.
Well, all I know is it's on its way over.
I'll modify the lenses and reprogram the system. We should be able to change the wavelength from energy to an 847 nanometer data beam.
What do you mean we should be able to?
I've never had to make the switch before.
Great. Let's move.
The internet is being overwhelmed. Now, fiber optic cables help to relieve this digital congestion a bit, but it's simply too expensive to wire up the entire planet. So why not use satellites to transmit vast amounts of data by laser beams? Then you could send the entire Library of Congress anywhere in the world in a matter of seconds. Or you could download a dozen Hollywood movies in a blink of an eye.
The results of the first tests are awaited around the world. The team from the German Aeronautics and Space Administration have made thorough preparations for this night's work. The time has come. Colleagues from Japan send the final pieces of data, the precise course of their research satellite. In this test, the satellite will transmit data to the DLR via laser. 3.5 hours to go to the flyover. Shortly before midnight, the team activate the reception station on the roof of the Institute. The astronomic dome opens to reveal the centerpiece of the mission, the telescope, adapted with a special device. It's a position marker that will signal to the satellite the exact location of the ground station. This is the reception system for the data laser in space. An infrared camera will help the telescope follow the exact track of the satellite. But even if it all functions perfectly, there are still two incalculable factors. One of them is familiar to every non-scientist. When the satellite's laser beam is aimed at the Earth, it has to pass through several layers of the atmosphere. To see what happens, we have to use a special camera. The laser beam is constantly and repeatedly distorted. We all know this as the heat shimmers on a hot day. This effect can seriously disrupt the stream of information coming from space. And clouds could even prevent today's laser transmission happening altogether. They need a little luck tonight. 2 hours and 8 minutes to the flyover.
Markus, bist du bereit?
A last test of the main procedures. For the real thing, they'd use an invisible infrared laser beam. Tonight, they're using a visible laser. From 500 meters away, a data stream reaches the telescope. The receptor responds. The data have been received. The satellite is about to appear over the horizon. The spectacles protect the scientist's eyes from the powerful positioning laser on the telescope, which is about to fire. An infrared filter will make it visible. The connection to the satellite has been established. The telescope follows the satellite's path. It's traveling more than 9 times faster than a bullet. Then the satellite fires its information to the ground station.
We are just getting a clear signal from the satellite. This is the technology we can use in the future to transmit huge amounts of information through space or through the stratosphere.
Over the coming decades, a completely new communication system will be developed for this technology. Information exchange by laser will be a routine operation. Solar-powered airships could park 20 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Wherever the earthbound network is inadequate or is disrupted, they would be able to receive and redirect huge amounts of data. And in contrast to regular radio signals, it's almost impossible to eavesdrop on a laser.
A radio signal is inevitably transmitted very broadly and can therefore easily be picked up, while an optical signal is very tightly packed. In our satellite downlink, the signal was only a few meters in diameter. Any eavesdropper would need to be right next to the receiver, which would obviously make him rather conspicuous.
Unnoticed by the two superpowers, the scientists on the space station prepare to send their precious formula out into the world. Just a few hours before, they sent a well-disguised call for help down to Earth in the space elevator, in the hope that someone would understand. This message in a bottle has reached its destination. Bob and Li Chao ask Paula for an urgent favor. They need an insurance policy for their dangerous move, and only the world's media can provide it. Paula has just an hour to get the USA's major news networks on their side. The scientists on the space station have no choice but to trust her.
You got 30 seconds.
Any update on the situation in Central Asia?
Not yet, sir, but there's another development.
News from space, from the Solar Research Station Solaris. Outside sources have just informed us of a major breakthrough in solar power research. We now go live to Dr. Wang and Dr. Sanders on the space station.
We've discovered a material that is so efficient, it can absorb and convert 3 times as much sunlight into electricity as previous materials. Dr. Wang?
To verify our discovery, we'll now send the formula via laser beam to laboratories in China and the United States, and to the major solar research centers on Earth.
Let's do it.
A press of a button, and the formula leaves the space station. Less than a second later, it reaches a data distribution point that fires it by laser to the whole world. The formula for a better life.
I'd like to thank my government for watching over my wife during my absence. I look forward to seeing her when I land.
And we wish to thank the leaders of our nations and the European Union for their spirit of cooperation. And as well as everyone who helped make this discovery possible, this is for you. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just witnessed history in the making. This is truly a day you'll tell your grandkids about. If you've just joined us, I'll try to recap. Today, on the Solar Research Station Solaris, 2 scientists have reported a breakthrough that could revolutionize the production of fuel and solve the energy crisis that confronts the planet.
What do you think the world may look like in, say, 50 years from now?
50 years? Are you kidding? Who would predict that far into the future?
Maybe cities on Mars?
Intergalactic travel?
Another big, blue, beautiful Earth?
The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams.
Confucius?
Try again.
Another Chinese proverb?
Eleanor Roosevelt.
That was my next guess.
Will technology ever solve our looming energy crisis and save the planet? Yes, I think it will. But I wouldn't put my money on any one particular breakthrough. Rather, it's going to be an energy mix of solar, wind, hydrogen, fusion, maybe nuclear. So let's hope that we find a way. Because even if we do colonize outer space, it's always nice to have a home to come back to. Now, I leave you with one final thought. We hold the power of life and death over our species and the entire planet. No other generation has ever had that power.